me once again on my channel, guys. I am going to do my very first terrain tutorial for my channel as requested by Kerry. So what are we going to do? We're going to do a lightweight piece of terrain for us. We're going to do these cliffs, woodland scenics. These molds are absolutely fantastic, but the problem is when you use plaster, very heavy. So this is a tip, this is a trick I've learnt, very good to do with these, and I'll show you how it works. So what I use is this stuff from Lumens. I'll put a link below. This stuff is absolutely fantastic, and I'll show you exactly how it works. You end up with such a clean product in the end that you can use, no mess, no plaster everywhere, and very light. It comes in white, black and grey. I use grey because if it chips off, anything paint rubs off, you've got grey underneath and it's a natural colour. So this one here you can get online from Lumens, as I said, about 20 bucks. There are cheaper versions on Temu, but cheap is cheap, and it is nowhere near as good as this stuff. So this is the one I would recommend. This is the one I use. And I'll show you how it works. This is step one of what we're going to do. So I'm only going to grab a little bit out. As you can see, it's quite rubbery. It lasts as long as you can use it. But let's go. So it does pick up detail. I'm only going to use a little bit, and I'm just going to show you how. So what you need to do is, you don't even have to fill the whole thing. So I'm going to pick out a little bit of detail and push it right in. Push it right in. Again, you don't have to fill it. You can if you want, but you don't have to fill it all in. All you're wanting to do is get the detail. So I make these in advance, and because it takes, this is the longest part of this job, is as it will take days to dry. So that's why I said I make them in advance. So, but what you need to do is let them dry. Don't put them in a container and seal them, even if you're going to use them in 6 months time, because I have had them sweat on me. They will shrink a little bit over time, but yeah, it's no here, neither here or there with that. So what you need to do when it's cured, you'll see that it will lift away from the edges. Alright, you'll start to see it lift away. Do resist pulling it out early. You pull it out early, and if this this foam clay is not set, you will lose all your detail. Alright, so resist that. Wait until it starts to pull away itself before you take it out of the molds. Alright, so as I said, do resist it. Alright, so what we're going to do is, I've prepared some earlier, and we're going to set this aside now. Alright, and that was just to show you how to use it. As I said, you don't have to fill it all. Alright, obviously you can, but you don't really want to waste your foam clay if you have to. So, alright, let's put that aside. So, these ones here, these are ones that I've done earlier. And as you can see, all the details, probably can't see it quite as well because it's all grey, but extremely light. This one was made probably 6 months ago, if not more. Okay, so that's a good 6 months. It's all cured and extremely light and durable. Alright, extremely. Whereas, you drop it, it's not chipping. You drop your plaster one, other than being heavy, it's going to crack, it's going to smash all over the place. Alright, so this is what I use for my cliffs and that. So, one of the beauties about this is you can even cut it with scissors, knives, everything like that, and I'll show you in a minute like that. But first off, we're going to prepare our base. I'm going to set that aside. Alright, we're going to do a base. So, what do I use for bases? My personal preference is Green Stuff World's foamed PVC. Okay, sorry about the light shining on there. Alright, so I use Green Stuff World's foamed PVC. It comes in different thicknesses. I use a 5mm for my bases. Okay, so this is again extremely light. There's 3 pieces in there of A5. You can exactly, I've found that everything that they say here is true. You know, easy to putty, easy to bend, easy to paint, very easy to handle. So it doesn't warp. So if you're making bases out of this for any sort of terrain, like some MDFs can do, this stuff that I personally haven't found it has warped. And again, you can trim it with a knife and everything like that. So that's what I use. That's my go-to. Alright, that's my go-to for doing my bases for terrain. So moving on, here's one I prepared earlier. Alright, I've just cut out the shape and I snapped it at a little bit of an angle to try and give it a little bit of texture on the edges. Okay, so this is the shape of what our base is going to be like. As you can see, I've used it for various things while I'm doing it. I keep all my scrap bits. I obviously use the other half of this piece for something else. And alright, so what am I going to do first? Before I put anything in this, I am going to paint a little bit of the edges, and I'm going to use some oak brown. I literally only have 4 paints to the side here for this project. So you grab a little bit of oak brown, and so you can use craft paints if you want for this stuff, but I literally find that craft paints don't, especially for something a little bit quicker, like I'm doing here. That's the wrong brush for this. Let's use this. I was trying to do it quick with that brush, but it was seeping in. So again, craft paints. You can use craft paints for the cheaper, but they take ages to dry, and I didn't want you guys watching paint dry. So we've again, and I do sacrilege, I do use a lot of my model paints for terrain. Obviously they come with a better pigment, so it's I know it means I go through more paints, but you know, that's a burden of the hobby, isn't it? Just waffling on while I do this. Paint the edges, and they can be touched up later on. The beauty about terrain is, especially natural looking terrain, you make mistakes, you can just cover it up. Okay, a little bit more extra flock or gravels or whatever. Alright, that's going to do. Clean off my board. Let's not get a lot of paint on that. Alright, so, alright, done the edges. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of a rock on. So, first off, I'm going to do a little bit of a back edge, bit of scrap foam. I'm just going to whack some super glue on that. You can use any glue you want, but I get impatient, so I'm using super glue because I get like that. So I'm going to put that bit there, and then we're going to grab just a backfill it in the sink. What else are we going to do? Always keep scraps around, and it does build up a little bit, and every now and then you've got to have a little bit of a clean out. Okay, so that's the basic structure. We're going to put rocks here. We're going to lean it back that way. So back to our foam clay, the core of what we're doing. So what we're going to do is pick a little bit of a spot we want, and I reckon that's a nice little bit there. And as I said, cuts with scissors. So what we're going to do now, that's a bit too high for what I want. Oh, that's the way I wanted. get way too high. Only a little ridge. Okay. That's a bit better. That's a bit better. Alright, so I'm going to put another piece of scrap foam here. Hopefully I'm not boring you guys. And yeah, I reckon that'll be good. Alright, so yeah, as I said, this doesn't melt with super glue. So stick your fingers down there. So there's first bit of core bit. Bit I cut off before. Let's find a nice little ridge bit. Even when you cut it, forms nice little ridge bits. So we're going to grab another little rock bit and we're going to give it a slope. Whack a bit of super glue behind it. And this other scrap bit, as you can see, it bends wherever you want it to go. So let's whack that around there like that. Alright. Okay. There's our basics of what we're going to do for our rock face. Okay. So as you can see, while I was gluing this, I didn't even wait for this to completely dry because I'm going to be going over with it and touching up as we go. So as you can see, there's a base rock formation. Doesn't meet the ground. You know what, as I said, doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to fill that with stuff afterwards. So I think I'm going to put another bit of scrap. Yeah, I might put another bit of scrap in there. So that off camera because I was naughty and didn't use. I just used a normal razor blade because I'm slack. Okay, right, there we go. Another bit of fill. So let's make a little bit of super glue in there. And let's build this bit up. Okay, I reckon that's not bad. Okay, so next step, let's put a little bit of foam clay bits aside. And I mean, if we wanted to, we could put another rock at the other back. There's a beautiful piece I've kept from where I've cut off down below, but I'm not using that on this one. We're going to slope back, so we can use this for anything. So what are we going to do next? We're going to finish the slope on this. So what we're going to use is another bit of foam clay. This stuff does go quite a way. It doesn't take long to melt it, like mold it into. Just warm it up a little bit. Okay, so straight on top. Okay, mold it in. Put as much as you want on that as you want. Okay. Gonna mold that down there like that. Mix in. Okay, a little bit too much in there, so we're gonna mould it around here to give our edge. So minis are going to sit on there. There's room to sit them on there. Sometimes keep a mini just to make sure. Yeah, look at that, it's going to have a little bit of an issue there, so let's build that up a little bit more. Grab a little bit more foam clay out. So I know I want a little bit over here. Needs a bit. Alright, so done. Alright, now you can see it's starting to come together. Doesn't have to be neat, it's a piece of terrain. So, moving on, what are we going to do next? We're going to paint the rock face before we do any more. So, three colour triad. As I said, we've got four paints for this whole thing. We're going to start with I've got a triad of greys. Okay, got dark stone, dungeon grey, and ash grey. Alright, that's all we're going to use on this, other than the oak. You can do as fancy as you want. I'm just doing this fast, so not mucking around. Sometimes I'll do like different colours and wet blend and all sorts, but I'm just going to show you how quick and easy you can. And I'm going to use a tiny bit of water to make my paint go a little bit further. Okay. Don't use too much water though if you're doing fast, because it will take ages to dry. Top. Need a tiny bit more. Okay. Step one, done. Right. While the rock face is drying, we're going to move on and discuss the next bit while that bit dries. Okay, so my ground cover. What I do for the actual ground cover of the bits before we do our next set is I make this stuff up. So this is a paste I've made up. Lasts a fair while. You can buy, I do use quite a bit of other ground things, like, you know, wet ground, AK foot, like AK is a great product. I do use that on occasions, but this one here, cheap and effective, make it yourself. So how do we make it? This is the base product. Alright, it's available from Kmart. Goes for about $8.50. I'll put the link below for it. What you do is you just grab a bit of that out. It is quite a thick paste, as you can see, but you're gonna add stuff to it. It dries matte. So with mine, I used a little bit of craft paint to tint it first to give it the majority of the tint. Then I add some coarse ballast just to give it a bit of texture. Can add whatever you want to it. Don't add kitty litter, because the kitty litter will dissolve into it. Then I add some pigments. I add some pigment to it just to give it a little bit of a darker colour and to keep it with its matte finish. Alright, craft paints can dilute it quite a bit and be a pain. So I have used some of my normal oak brown in there as well. So that is almost dry. So it's dry enough to do first dry brush. Okay, first dry brush. Going to this. And go this one. Dab it on there. Okay. Alright. So that's two colours down there. You can spend as much time as you want on it, guys, but I'm just doing a rush piece. We'll see how it goes. Alright. So let's let that one go. Just using makeup brushes, cheap, for doing the terrain bits. And I keep older brushes. I call them swab brushes because I'm about to use one of them now. So what we're going to do is, while that's drying, we're going to cover a bit of area at the back here. Just like that. As you can see, it's quite texturous. You can make it as texturous as you want. I'm just going to leave a little bit of a dirt area at the back, and we might gonna lead it up here a little bit. Just to give it a little bit of a walkway up the thing. I don't want this bit on grass, that's why I'm doing this one now, just using this bit as mud. So lead that up there like that. So any spots I don't want grass on, I want that to start drying. Oh well, I do want that to start drying. Alright, so we've got a little bit of a patch leading up there. Let's move it that way a little bit. Again, if it doesn't look right, you can cover it up with other stuff. So there's the base bit at the back. Okay. Let's do a little bit here too. Alright. Getting happy with that. Okay, so let's move on to the next bit. As that bit dries, it's same with, like, you can speed paint miniatures. You can switch between the foot, the head, go around, you know, and speed up your process. You don't have to paint a mini from top to bottom. Okay, so that is dry enough for our final highlight. So now we're going to go to our lightest grey, which is ash grey. Hope I'm not boring you all to death. Let's have a look here. Oh, left that paintbrush in the water a bit too long. It's a swab brush, but still don't want to leave it in there too long. Okay, so back to our dry brush. Make sure it's a bit dry. Okay, our lightest grey. Pick up the edges, top down. Alright, so we're going top down. Okay. Well, again, you can go as heavy colour scheme as you want, or as light. You can even put a wash after over that if you wanted to, but I'm pretty happy with that. That's pretty cool, simple. Passes for rocks for me. Alright. So, what we're going to do next we're going to grab a little bit more of paste, and I did notice that it's gotten a little bit dry, so what I'm going to do is put a tiny bit of water in there. Okay, give that a little bit of a mix because I don't want it to plug too much towards the bottom of the rocks, but we're going to... Okay, so I'm going to use a bit of a smaller brush than I did last... Oh, no, I'm going to use the same brush. No, where's my other one? There we go. Okay. Now, I'll get into there. Okay, so that's, as you can see, because I've watered it down a little bit, I'm not picking up as much as my texture, but it's just giving us a bit more undercolour to get rid of the white. Okay, I'm going to colour all of that. Again, as I said, the beauty about this using grey as your foam clay, if the paint does wear off, it's grey underneath and it's a rock, so happy days. Okay, now starting to look a bit how we want it to. Okay, now what we're going to do next is try not to, because it's quite wet. That's how she's looking. So what we're going to do now is grab a bit of cork. Rocks around the base bit there. Okay. Waste not, want not. That was just ammo cork rock. Again, another lightweight product. That's their stone grey thick one. Comes in different mediums. This one here is a desert stone mix. There's 3 different sizes inside of that one, and then you can buy them, you know, a fine one, medium as well. But you know, okay, so that's coming along nicely. I reckon that's not looking too bad. Okay, so next step. Go a little bit more of this. Okay, while that first bit's drying a little bit, what I'm going to do for my ground cover, my grass. So this here is, I keep all my scraps from when I'm doing basing. It is a mixture of so many different brands, types. Timu, I brought some cheap ones. I don't recommend because they shine like anything on earth. So, but I keep them all, and then I mix a little bit of pigment to it to darken it up. And anything that's on my table, I just keep it inside and use it for scenery after I've done bases for troops. So, waste not, want not. I'm pretty sure everyone does the same thing. So, we're gonna come in again. As you can see things aren't drying, which is good. So we're speeding this up. Once it's all dry at the end, it'll be good. So I'm going to do that bit first. Move that around there. Pretty liberal with it. Okay. Coming together nicely. As I said, waste not, want not. Back in the container. You will get bits as you, because you're doing it, if you're doing it fast like this, you will get little bits on the edge where you've used your hand and it's come off. Don't stress, you cover that up afterwards. That's the beauty about this stuff. You know, doing terrain, as I said earlier, all you do is just throw some more flock on it. So I'm going to do it in bits and pieces now. So we're going to do the edge where we want. We're going to flop the edge where it goes on to. We're going to do a little bit down there. And this has got a bit of a hard edge, so we're going to cover that. Bit of flock. Okay. So get our grass again. So a little bit of a pat down. As you can see, I'm not using any static grass applicators. For the people that know me, I had a really fun adventure with a static grass applicator. Not really, wasn't that fun. But now you can see it's starting to come together. It's not really taking that long at all. Waste not, want not. Edges coming up pretty good. Okay, so here's where I wanted my dirt patch coming up here. So we're going to avoid putting some paste on that. But go around here like that. Mask the top bit. Okay, a little bit more here. Whack it a little bit up here. Down here. And we're almost done. Give it a bit of a squish down. So we're going to muddy up this a little bit more. Doesn't matter that a little bit of grass got on there. I reckon we might do a little bit more of a ridge there. And as I said earlier, like being a terrain piece, you can do whatever you want. Like, doesn't look right, you do a little bit more up. So, and at the end of the day, will anything ever look right? Okay, whatnot. Okay, so there we go. There we go. So, finished piece, and now you can just spruce it up with whatever you want. The next step from here would be to go and add little bits of tufts. You can go your hardest tufts or whatever. And if I'm going to do some, what I'll do is do a little bit of a look, see. Alright, there's a gap here still. Alright, so we've got a gap here, so what we're going to do is, that's where we're going to, this is all my scrap bits of clump foliage and everything like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this little bit of an area, whack some glue in, super glue straight on top, and we're going to whack some clump foliage there. And I reckon we could use for a little bit here too. Happy little accidents. Happy little accidents. I reckon we can do a little bit more there too. Okay, as you can see, it's not perfect. Oh, got another little gap there. Instead of putting a few more bushes there, a little bit of super glue and just a tiny bit of flock in there, just because I didn't want any more bushes, so that any troops or whatever can go straight up against the barrier. There you go. So we filled in some gaps with foliage. We filled in another one with just a bit of flock. You can use any, different coloured flocks that you want. But there you go. That didn't take long at all to make that. As I said, any little bits that you've marked off with your hands as you've rubbed off as you've done the edges, you can go through after it's completely dry and up. But there you go. Quick little tutorial. Didn't take long at all. And Bob's your only, straight on the table. That'll be dried off. If I was going, well, I am going to the gaming club tonight. I'm getting my very first game of Dead Man's Hand in tonight. So, but I won't be using this. But if I was needing this at the club tonight for anything, it would be ready to go. And you can put any type of foliage across the edge that you've got. So, I hope that's of use of some of you. Hope the old trick with the foam clay works for you, and we'll go from there. I know I will bring some more terrain tutorials to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much for joining me, guys, and get your hobby on. Roll some dice.